There's only one major scale, but did you know that there are 3 different versions of the minor scale? Why is that? What are they called? How do we build them? How do we use them? Why do we even care? Welcome back to the channel. My name's Chris. Today we will answer all those questions. Today you will learn why there are 3 different versions of the minor scale. First off, there are a lot of scales. One source I found recently said there were over 24,000 different scales. I feel like that's more of a math trick than it is necessarily, an attempt to catalog useful functioning scales. And here's why I think that. For the most part, we assume scales are melodic content. In other words, we use them to generate melodies, right? Scales go up and down, and that's what they do. But they're far more powerfully leveraged as a way to build chords. Chords come from scales. And the major scale builds the most pleasing functional chords of any scale. And what I mean by functioning is that they all sound good together. They're easy to push into chord progressions. They play really, really well together. Think of the major scale as building a toolbox full of super, super useful chords, like sort of a foolproof set of chords. That's called a key. Now then, lurking inside the major scale is its relative minor equivalent, meaning that it uses the same notes, but they're displaced. They start and end in a different spot, which pushes all these chords into a different order, which, as you will see, changes their relationship and makes them in some cases a little less easy to use. So when we're building chord progressions in a minor key, we run into some snags. There are a couple of problems. The 3 variations of the minor scale were built to overcome these issues. So let's zoom in and I'll show you how this all plays out. First, I just want to play you these scales. I'm going to play the major scale first. That's our primary scale. That's sort of the scale that all other scales are measured against. I'm going to put the formula down here. The formula is simply naming these notes, numbering these notes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. We use the major scale as sort of the ruler. This is our sort of unaltered scale formula. All other scales are simply alterations of these notes. That's how to look at scales sort of from a formulaic standpoint. The first scale we're going to talk about is natural minor. It's also called relative minor, and that's basically a major scale with the following alterations. Flat 3, flat 6, flat 7, and back to 1. That's sort of the primary minor scale. That's our main minor scale. One of the first alterations we're going to talk about is called harmonic minor, and taking a major scale and simply flatting the 3rd and the 6th, but using a major 7, that regular 7, gives us harmonic minor. Sort of much more exotic sounding than natural minor. The final minor scale that we're going to look at today is melodic minor. Melodic minor is just a major scale with a flat 3 in it. Right? So each one of these is slightly different. They have a slightly different sound. So why do they exist? Why do we have 3 different minor scales? As I said at the top, one of the best utilizations of scales is to build chords. You simply take the notes of a scale, combine and repurpose them to build chords. I did a video here on harmonizing scales, how to do it. You might check that out if you're not familiar with harmonization. But the result is basically you get a library of chords built from just the notes of that scale. And they all fit together really well because they're using the same material. You can combine them, you can make really great chord progressions. They fit together really well. They're easy to use. But the crown jewel, sort of the centerpiece of all the chords in that key, is called the 5 chord. And it's simply the chord we get when we build a chord off the 5th degree. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That chord is called the dominant chord because it really leads our ear back to the 1 chord. 5, 1. And it does so because of this note right here. This is the 7th note in the scale. Watch this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Listen to this. 6, 7. Creates a lot of tension, an enormous amount of tension in relation to those other notes, and pulls our ear back to that first note in the scale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It leads us back. It's called the leading tone for that reason. When you put this note in a chord, it helps our ear go back to the 1. That's why the 5-1 progression is so useful, because it creates so much tension with that leading tone and puts us back to the root so well. When you do the same thing with the minor scale, the natural minor scale, the chord that you build off the 5th degree, 1, 2, flat, 3, 4, 5, is minor. We don't have this note in the scale anymore, right? Now we have this one. So we don't have this note anymore to lead us back to the root. Composers really wanted to be able to compose in a minor key and use this 5 chord. And the way they did that was they took the natural minor scale and they just returned that 7. Instead of making it flat, they just returned it to the leading tone. Now their chord progressions in a minor key could utilize that big old honkin' 5 chord, and boom, they got their tension and release back, right? By using that harmonic minor scale, they were able to return the leading tone and get that really cool resolution back to a minor chord. So you'd think everything is cool, right? Well, it's actually not. Because if you listen to the harmonic minor scale, which was created to return that leading tone, it sounds pretty exotic. Right? Composers didn't want to be stuck with that. To make all their songs in a minor key sound that exotic, they wanted something a little smoother. So what they did is they took that 6th degree and made it natural. In other words, they raised it back from being a flat 6. And that smooths the top of the scale out. Listen to this. Here's harmonic minor. Very exotic sounding. With that normal 6, that natural 6, it smooths out the scale. Problem solved, right? Not quite. If you listen to melodic minor, when it ascends and it has that leading tone in it, it's quite nice. That 6 helps smooth it out. But when you play it backwards, when you descend, it's not quite as pretty. It just doesn't quite sound as pretty. So composers wanted to be able to smooth out the descending line as well. So the solution they came up with was to play melodic minor when you go up the scale, and then return to natural minor when you go down the scale. This is the only scale that we know of, or really that's in best practice, that's played differently ascending and descending. Melodic minor is played ascending, and then you simply return to natural minor when you descend. And that smooths out both the ascending and the descending versions. A great example is Yesterday by Paul McCartney and the Beatles. So Yesterday is in the key of F, but I'm going to keep it in this key just so our ears don't have to recalibrate. Listen to the melody for Yesterday. That's melodic minor. But this next descending line is returned to natural minor. Melodic minor going up, natural minor coming down. Listen to the difference if McCartney had just stayed with melodic minor in that second descending line. It's just not as pretty sounding. It's not as smooth as descending natural minor. Here's that same line in melodic minor. Now, regardless of how used to the melody we actually are, this melody doesn't sound that great. This one sounds better. It's smoother, it has a nicer sound to it. So melodic minor going up, natural minor coming down. So as you can see, composers have had to take this minor scale and do stuff to it to get better results. We wanted that leading tone, so we made harmonic minor. We didn't want to be stuck with the super exotic sound of harmonic minor, so we made melodic minor. But we didn't like that descending line so much, so we used natural minor coming down on melodic minor scale melodies. We had to use each one of these scales to solve a different problem, right? The major scale seems to be fine the way it is. The melodies work out great, the chords work out great, but the minor scale needs a little help, and that's why we have these 3 different minor scales to help us get through some of those problems. Okay, so there are the 3 primary versions of the minor scale. I think we should really think of them as variations of the same thing, right? All designed to take care of some of those problems. That gives us a better understanding of how they're used, why they were generated. But for me, the big takeaway here is that while the minor scale is really, really beautiful, it doesn't do everything as well as the major scale. So we've had to make these adaptations. We've had to make these tweaks, these variations on the scale itself to solve some of these problems and to bring back some of the functionality that the major scale does so well. Tabs for this lesson, as well as every lesson on the channel, are available through my Patreon page. Head on over there if you want to grab these tabs. And if you do decide to support the channel, thanks so much in advance. I hope this lesson has been interesting. I hope it's helped demystify why there are more than one minor scale and how to use them, why they exist. Above everything else, stay curious, and I'll see you next time.